Okay. Om Sadashivasamārambhām Shankarācārya-madhyamām Asmadācārya-paryantāಂ Vande Guru-parampārām. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we'll continue with where we left off. We had completed the fourth mantra, and now we will be chanting the fifth one. Yad vachanabhyuditam yena vaghabhyudhyate.
Yad vachanabhyuditam yena vagabhyudyate
Tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidam upasate.
Tadeva brahmatvam vidhi yadidam upasate.
Okay, so I'll just mute you all. And so Brahman, Brahma Tadeva. So second line, Tadeva Brahma, Brahma Tadeva. Brahman is that only. Vidhi you should know. And what is that? It is consciousness principle. And Yad Anubhyuditam, which is not revealed, Vachaha. So Yad Vachaha Anubhyuditam, which is not revealed by the speech, by the words. Brahman cannot be revealed by words. But Yena Vag Abhyudhyate, because of which speech is revealed, because of which speech is possible, Tvam Vidhi, you should understand that as Brahman. Very beautiful little summary. The words cannot reveal Brahman. Words cannot tell you what is Brahman, but the very fact that you can speak, that indicates the presence of that Brahman. And Tvam Vidhi, you should understand, Idam Yad Idam Upasate. So Idam is this. What is this? He's talking about this as any of the deities. Any form which you worship of Ishvara, this Yad Idam Upasate, which people worship, which people meditate upon, Na Brahma. That is not Brahman. A very profound verse. It says, this is the definition, this is the explanation of the definition given earlier, where the teacher said that Atma is not known and Atma is never knowable. If you remember the last two mantras, we saw that teacher said that Atma cannot be known, nor is Atma knowable. And this particular verse is an explanation of that definition, that Atma cannot be known, nor is it knowable. So let us look at what is a knower. The knower is called pramata in Sanskrit. Prama means to know, and the instrument which you have for knowing various things, like your eyes, your ears, your tongue, these are called the pramanam, the instruments of knowledge. And therefore, a pramata, the knower, uses pramanam, the instrument, to know some object which is prameyam. So that object can be shabda, that is, can be words, it can be form, shabda, rupa, rasa, any of these it can be. Whatever the sense organs reveal, that is the prameyam. The sense organs are the pramanam. The user of the sense organs is the pramata. And what is it? The entire world, if you see, entire world is revealed by the sense organs. So everything in the world is under the prameyam category. But what is that one thing which cannot come under the prameyam category? It is the pramata, the knower. The pramata can never be known, but everything is known only because of the presence of the pramata. And therefore, the pramata is evident in every knowledge. Any object that you know, remember, it is not just the object that you are knowing, but you also know that the presence of the pramata is proved by the knowledge of that object. Just like when you look at a photograph, you do not need any proof that the camera was there, right? Because of the camera only the photograph was taken. And even though in the photograph the camera is not there, you don't ask, was there a camera? Why don't you ask? Because the very photograph itself is the proof. And similarly, for whenever you look at any object, you don't require any proof that the pramata existed, because the fact that you are able to cognize some object is automatically proof of the presence of the knower. And therefore, this pramata cannot be known. It need not be known, it cannot be known. But the existence of the pramata is revealed in every experience. This ever revealed, ever evident experiencing principle we call Atma. And therefore, here the Acharya says that the pramata is never knowable, and therefore, any attempt to know the Atma, which is the ultimate pramata, is foolish. Never attempt to know the Atma, because you are the very knower itself. And therefore, what is moksha? Moksha is dropping the realization, the desire which we have for self-realization. The English word we use, self-realization. Moksha is dropping this desire for self-realization with the knowledge that there is no need for the self to be realized. I don't need to know Brahman. And when do I drop that seeking, that quest for knowing Brahman? When do I drop? When I know that I am Brahman, and that there is no need for knowing Brahman. In the knowledge that I am Brahman, the desire to know Brahman is gone. And so he says, Yad Vacha Anabhyuditam. This Atma, it cannot be revealed by the words. It cannot be objectified using the Shabda Pramanam. However, Yena, by that Atma, Vag Abhyudyate. The words themselves, the speech themselves are revealed, are evident only because of the Atma alone, because of the consciousness principle alone. And therefore, Tadeva Brahma Tvam Vidhi, know that principle by which the tongue, the Vagindriyam, is capable of speaking. That principle you should understand as Brahman. And you have to extend further, that Brahman is no one but yourself alone. And when we understand this, we should consciously recall that Atma can have a twofold status, a dual status. One is the intrinsic status as the consciousness principle, and one is the incidental status as the pramata. So in our language, call it OC and RC. The intrinsic status is original consciousness, but the incidental status is what? Reflected consciousness in the presence of the reflecting medium. That is why in the waking state, in Jagrad Avastha, I am pramata, I am the knower. When the world is present, I am the knower. When the world is absent, I revert back to my basic state, consciousness principle, intrinsic status of OC only I am, original consciousness. And this is what Acharya is saying here. He is saying, Na idam yat idam upasate. That which you worship here, whether it be the form of Rama or the form of Shiva, Shivalingam, whether it be, or whether it be the photograph of the deities which you worship, Krishna, anything which you worship, na idam yat idam upasate. That which you worship here, na Brahma, yat idam upasate, tad na Brahma. Whatever you worship here is only the finite form. It is not Brahman at all. The finite form is what? The form which is worshipped. And in Sanskrit we call it Upasya Devata. that devata which is being worshipped. So no upasya devata can be the ultimate reality. This is what Acharya is saying. Then the question can come up. In that case, why does Shastra introduce devatas at all? The answer is simple. They are all stepping stones for the unprepared mind. Without the initial steps, one cannot come to the final reality, the Satyam principle. And therefore, whatever darshanam of devas you get, Puranas all talk about yogis and rishis who got the vision of the devatas in their meditation. But remember that whatever darshanam you get, it is a upasya devata. It is a devata with form. Anything with form is finite. Therefore, that devata is not the ultimate reality. And Shankara adds here in his commentary, asam vyavaharye. Brahman is beyond all vyavahara, beyond all transactions. Interestingly enough, if you think about it, even the word existence, when we use the word, right, we use the word existence, Sat Chit Ananda, we used to talk about Brahman. But when you use the word Sat, existence, what are you automatically implying? We think that we are talking about Brahman, right? But when you use the word existence, what is it that is being referred to?
Any object?
Any object, and therefore
Or
anatma only. So the word
yes.
existence can be used only in the presence of anatma. Remember, the word existence, the word consciousness, the word ananda, all these words are used only in the presence of anatma. When anatma is not present, the word existence has no meaning. And for example, you take Sushupti Avastha, where the mind is resolved. In that Sushupti Avastha, there is no meaning for the word existence at all. And Shankara adds a few other words. Nirvisheshaha. So Visheshaha means a description, an adjective. Nirvisheshaha, beyond all descriptions. Beyond the Shabda Pravritti Nimittani, the conditions for verbal communication. We have discussed it earlier, I hope you remember. None of those conditions are applicable for Brahman, which is Pare, the absolute reality. And in that Brahman, Samye, there is no difference. Even Sat, even Chit, even Ananda, the form of existence, consciousness, and Ananta Ananda, this differentiation does not exist at the Paramarthika level. All these words have meaning only at the Vyavaharika level. And at the Brahman level, at the Paramarthika level, there is no differentiation at all. There is no different meaning at all. The words themselves are not there. So in Paramarthika, there is no difference between Sat, Chit, Ananda. And so Shankara says, Brahmani samvyahara pravartante. In that Brahman, samvyavahara, all the words, the names, the forms are being used only from the Vyavaharika viewpoint, Vyavaharika standpoint. And what are they based upon? Yeivag adi upadibhihi. Because of the various upadis, like the vak, the tongue. And all these upadis belong where? They belong to three bodies. Three bodies belong where? Vyavaharika Satyam. So from the standpoint of view of the upadis, and therefore ultimately from the standpoint of view of the Vyavaharika Satyam, Vyavaharika reality only, Atma is referred to as Karta, Bhokta, Vijnata, Niyanta, Prashasita. The various names are there. So this Atma is called the Karta, but to understand it, you have to say it is the ultimate Karta. Therefore, it is a Nirvikara Karta. It acts from the point of view of Vyavaharika. From Paramarthika angle, there is no action. Atma is Bhokta. It experiences, but it is Nirvikara Bhokta from the Paramarthika angle. It is a Bhokta from the Vyavaharika angle. Vijnata, it is a knower from the Vyavaharika angle. but not from the paramarthika angle. Niyanta, it's a controller from the point of Vyavaharika, but that word doesn't exist in Paramarthika. It is Prashasita, it is a ruler from the point of view of Vyavaharika, but not from the point of view of Paramarthika. And again, he quotes Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Vijnanam Anandam Brahma. Remember, Vijnanam Anandam Brahma again is from the point of view of the Jada Prapancha, from the inert universe. From the inert universe point of view only, there is Vijnanam and Anandam. Again, from the point of view of Anatma only. The point being made is all definitions, all descriptions of Brahman, which we all thought to date, that we are defining Brahman when we say Satchit Ananda, any definition can exist only from the Vyavaharika point of view, which means from the point of view of Anatma only. And to understand Atma to be Nirguna Brahman, I have to negate all the Anatma. When I negate Anatma, what am I doing? I am negating all the descriptions also. I have to exclude the Anatma. Therefore, vidhi iti. May you clearly understand this, says Shankara. This exclusion is purely intellectual. Physical exclusion of Anatma from Atma or Brahman is not possible. Why? Why is physical exclusion of Anatma and Atma not possible?
Sarvagata, Brahman is Sarvagata.
It is all pervading. Sarvagata. Where will you exclude it from? So that is the meaning. At that level, when we are talking about Brahman, any talk, any word which you use, remember it can be used only from the point of view of Vyavaharika Satyam, never from the Paramarthika angle. Now, we look at the last quarter, Na idam yadidam upasate. So Shankara says idam, he gives a description. Idam is equal to, where is idam? Nedam is broken as na idam. So that entire phrase gets broken as na idam yadi idam upasate. So idam is equal to, Shankara says, upadi bheda vishishtam anatma ishwaradi. So upadi bheda means, so vishishtam, all the adjectives, all the differences in the objects of creation are because of upadi bheda only, are because of the difference in upadi only. Because ultimately there is only one substance, that is Atma. And whenever you look at it from the Vyavaharika angle and give it multiple forms and multiple names, the forms themselves are the upadis. And therefore, Vishishtam upadi bhedaha. All objects of creation, all anatma, have these differences because of differences in upadi only, nama rupa upadi only, and including Ishwaradi. They are all anatma. So upadi bheda vishishta anatma. All anatma has different upadis. You give them different names because they look different to you. And he says Ishwaradi, including Ishwara, etc. So Ishwara, etc. has to be taken as Virat Ishwara, Hiranyagarbha, all those. Up to that, everything is Anatma. And Shankara says all these are not Brahman. They have only Vyavaharika utility. So you can do puja, you can ask for favors, you can fall at their feet when you are upset. All this is not Brahman. It is all Saguna Ishvara, but not Nirguna Brahman. And what is it? Yadidam iti upasate. So Shankara says that phrase means dhyayanti, that which you worship. So any object of worship for you, whatever the form is, whether it be Shivalingam or whether it be in the Himalayan peaks, the temple there, is Anatma only. And the fact that Anatma is not Brahman is conveyed through Tadeva Brahma Tvam Vidhi. What you are looking at is not Brahman. When Atma alone is Brahman, obviously Anatma is not Brahman. Okay. So why does he say this? Because when you say everything is Brahman, Sarvam Brahman, the chances are, in fact, there's a very good chance. A lot of even senior students, they say that Anatma is also Brahman because of the phrase Sarvam Brahman. Everything is Brahman. And in everything, Anatma is also included. But unfortunately, that interpretation is incorrect. When you say Sarvam Brahman, you have to exclude Anatma. Why? How can you exclude Anatma?
Mithya. Jagat is Mithya.
Yes, Anatma is Mithya. It is not, any Mithya object is as good as not being there, as not being existing. And therefore, when you say Sarvam Brahma, you are excluding the Mithya Anatma. Okay. Now we look at the next mantra, mantra number 6. We will chant Yan Manasa Namanute.
Manasa namanuse
Yena Hurmanomatam.
Yena
Yena
hurmanomatam
Manomatam.
Tadeva Brahmatvam Viddhi.
Tadeva
Deva
brahmatvam
Brahmatvam
vidhi
Vidhi
Nedam Yadidam Upasate.
Nedam yadidam upasate.
So Tadeva Brahman, that Brahman alone, that alone is Brahman, that very consciousness is Brahman, and Yadna Manute, which one does not know, Manasa. Manute means to know. Yad Manasa Namanute, that which one does not know with the mind, and Yena Ahuhu Manaha, but by which Atma, Yena is by that Brahman, Brahmena, by that Brahman, Manaha Ahuhu, they say the mind Matam, the mind is known. So what cannot be known by the mind, and because of which the mind is known, that is Brahman, he says. Tvam Vidhi, you may understand, that is Brahman. Na idam yad idam upasate. This deity which you meditate upon, this physical deity which you meditate upon, the finite deity which you meditate upon, na Brahma. That is not Brahman. So here we won't do too much of an explanation. It is the same thing, same argument as mantra number 5, but the example is applied to a different pramanam. Here the pramanam is the mind, and you may keep on changing the pramanams. But we have to remember that even the strongest pramanam, the most powerful pramanam, cannot reveal the Atma to you. Why? Because the Atma is the subject, and the pramanam cannot reveal the user of the pramanam. So you are the subject using that pramanam can never reveal yourself to you. Just like your eyes can never reveal your own eyes to you. At the most, you look at the mirror, but what you are seeing is not your eyes. You are seeing the reflection of the eyes. And so he says, Yat manasa navanote, that which the mind cannot reveal, yena mana matam ahuhu. But because of which the mind is revealed, the mind becomes a pramanam, an instrument. Tadeva Brahmatvam Vidhi. Know that principle to be Brahman, and that Brahman is yourself. And again, as I said, Atma has a dual status, intrinsic status as consciousness, incidental status as Pramatha. So, Yad Idam Upasate Tad Na Brahma. That Upasya Devata is not Brahman at all. Okay, the same argument is being extended in the next 3 mantras to different pramanams. So we will read them together. Mantra number 7 to mantra number 9. Yachakshusha na pashyati.
Ya chakshusha na pashyati.
Yena chakshugamshi pashyati.
Yena
Yena
chakshugamshi
Chakshusam
pashyati.
Tadeva
Vidyasti
brahmatvam vidhi.
Tadeva brahmatvam
Tadeva
vidhi.
Brahmatvam Vidhi
Nedam yadidam upasate.
Nedam
Nedam
yadidamupasate.
yadidam upasate.
So I think in the PDF which we have supplied, you would only have the anuswara above the g, so above the ksha, so it's chakshumshi it becomes. But the Vedic notation is a different notation with a, you know, what is the half moon plus a dot, it becomes gum. So anyway, it doesn't really matter for the purpose. For the purpose of chanting, it only it matters. So I am saying chakshugamshi, but if you are seeing it as chakshumsi, that is also fine. Okay, so we go to the next one. Yachhotre na shunoti.
Yachrotrena
Yachhotrena
nashroti.
shrunoti.
Yena shrotram idagam shrutam.
Yena
Yena
shrotram
shrutam
shrutam.
idam
Tadeva
shrutam.
brahmatvam vidhi.
Tadeva brahmatvam
Tadeva
vidhi.
brahmatvam vidhi.
Nedam yadidam upasate.
Nedam
Nedam yadidam
Nedamyadidamupasate.
upasate.
Yat pranena praniti.
Yat
Yat
pranena na
pranena
praniti.
praniti.
Yenah pranah praniyate.
Yena prana
Yena prana
pranidhyate.
praniyate.
Tadeva brahmatvam vidhi.
Tadeva brahmatvam
Tadeva matvam
vidhi.
vidhi.
Nedam yadidam upasate.
Nedam yadidam
Nedam
upasate.
yadidam upasate.
So it's the same argument being extended. Yat chakshusha na pashyati. That which can be never seen by the eyes. Yat chakshusha na pashyati. That which can never be seen by the eyes. Yena chakshumsi pashyati. Because of which the eyes can see. Tadeva brahmatvam vidhi. That principle because of which your eyes are able to see, you should know that as Brahman. Na ididam yadadam upasate. Na yat ididam upasate. Not that form which you worship here, that can never be Brahman. So you give another example. Similarly, with yat shotrena shunati, that because of which the ears can never decipher, the ears can never reveal that Brahman to you, but because of which your ears are active, they function as pramanam. Tadeva brahmatvam vidhi. Remember that principle because of which your ears are able to become pramanam. That is Brahman. Nedam yadidam upasate. Not that form which you worship over here. And yet pranena praniti. That because of which the prana functions, not something which can be revealed by the prana, that because of which prana functions. That tadeva brahma tvam vidhi nedam idnam upasate. So what does that last one mean? It's slightly different, so let's look at it. That tadeva brahma tvam vidhi. So here, remember that the word prana doesn't have the meaning of the mukhya prana. Because if you see the last three mantras, you will see they're all referring to sense organs. And therefore it stands to logic that prana here should also be sense organ. Otherwise, suddenly there is a break in the flow. Correct? So Shankara says here that prana here is not to be taken as mukhya prana. It is to be taken as the organ of smell, that is the nose. Hence, three jnanendriyas are being considered. So here he says that which the organ of smell cannot reveal to you, right? You cannot smell Brahman. So the organ of smell, the nose cannot reveal Brahman to you. However, it is because of Brahman that the nose functions as a pramana. This is what is being said in the last mantra. So this you should note that prana here is not mukhya prana. It is not the pancha prana. It is the organ of smell. Shankara's commentary here is important for us to understand. So, coming out of these three mantras, what do we understand? That Atma is aprameyam. It cannot become a pramaya at all. It cannot be conceived of, it cannot be revealed by any of the sense organs. And since it cannot be revealed, remember that it is without form, because anything which has a form can be revealed. And aprameyam means without a form, arupaha. This Atma is arupaha. And therefore there are some, darshanas which say that if you suspend the mind and the senses in deep meditation, then you come face to face with the Atman. But that is incorrect, as you can understand, because Atma is evident all the time. Consciousness is evident all the time. You don't have to suspend the mind and senses. Therefore, trying to get into samadhi for Atmajnanam or self-realization is a mistake. It's a misconception. Samadhi is not required for Atma, the consciousness principle, to be evident. Why? Because consciousness principle is Swaprakasha. It is self-evident all the time. And here we should remember the discussion we've had earlier upon the aham vritti and the idam vritti. So in any experience, for example, let us take the experience of the pot, ghata. So in any experience, there are two vrittis, two thoughts are there. One is, I know the pot, I know the ghata. This is ghata vritti. And this ghata vritti, remember the pot thought, it involves the pramata always, because the mind is required. Pramata is always there. And then there is another thought, I know that I know the ghata. The first one is, I know the pot. That involves the pramata. The second thought is, there are two I knows. I know that I know the pot. The second thought, it is the aham vritti. It involves the sakshi chaitanyam. The ghata vritti involves the pramata. The idam vritti involves the pramata. The aham vritti invokes the sakshi chaitanyam. And what is the sadhana that I do? I focus not on pramata, I focus on sakshi chaitanyam. So I focus on the aham vritti, not on the idam vritti. Okay. So with this, the first chapter is over. Any questions we can take, or we can move to the second chapter.
Acharya, may I ask a question?
Please, please.
It's a very, very silly question.
No questions are silly.
No, it is actually very silly. So it actually involves this last mantra that we just did, which required Shankaracharya's bhashya.
Yeah.
Why would it not be, if it was meant to be the dhyana, then why would that not be mentioned? Because very clearly Chakshuhu, Shrotra has been mentioned. Why not Ghrana? And why would they use the word prana when prana does something else?
No, because it is inconsistent. There are lots of contextual meanings in Shastram, and the context has to be understood properly. What is the context here? We are talking about sense organs. And that is why you have to take the meaning of a sense organ only, which is why Shankara says it should be taken as the Grana and not the Prana, Mukhya Prana.
The question, my question came around from actually the book that I'm using is the one that you've given me, Acharya, which is the Gita Press Gorakhpur one with the Hindi translation. And out here it's talking about the cheshtas of the prana, the working of the prana essentially. So I'll ignore that.
Yeah, you have to
but
ignore
the question came from there.
Yeah, so unfortunately, in the Gita Press, I think what they do is they do a literal translation.
Right.
But if you look at the Gita Press with Shankaracharya's commentary on it, then
that'll have
a different thing will be there.
Yeah, okay. So it's about knowing and not really about doing. It's not
about
got anything
knowing
to...
only the indriyas only the jnanendriyas are being talked about, and they have talked about 3 jnanendriyas. You have to extend to all 5.
Correct. Okay.
So basically, aprameyam cannot be known through any of the sense organs.
Understood, Acharya. Thank you.
Okay, so we look at chapter 2, Dvitiya Khandaha. So we will chant the first mantra. Yadi manyase suvedeti.
Yadi
manyase
suvedeti.
Dabhammevapi nunam tvam vetha brahmano rupam.
दभ्रामेवापि नूनं त्वं वेत्था ब्रह्मणो
वेत्त ब्रह्मणो
रूपमा
रूपम्
यदस्य त्वं यदस्य देवेषु
यदस्य त्वं यदस्य
यदस्त्वं यदस्य
देवेषु
देवेषु
अथ नु मीमांस्यमेव ते मन्ये विदितम्
अथ
अथ नो मीमांस्यमेव
मन्ये
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 विदितम्
विदितम्
So I have broken the word deveshvatha, which is there in the mantra, into deveshu plus
Yes.
atha. So just remember that for ease of chanting. Compound words are there, but they have to be broken up. So also one more thing, one more notation is some books, instead of dabhrame vapi, it may have daharame vapi. Especially Gita Press, I think those are using, they would see daharame vapi instead of dabhrame vapi. Both are okay. Both are same meaning only. Okay. Now, this entire mantra, excluding the last two words, manne viditam. So, those last two words you exclude, the entire mantra you have to prefix with Guru Uvacha. And that manne viditam, you have to prefix with Shishya Uvacha. Okay. So, the whole mantra is divided into two portions. One is the Guru's statement and one is the Shishya's reply. Shishya's reply is only Manne Viditam. The rest of it is all Guru's statement. Okay. What does he say? Yadi iti manyase. The Guru Uvacha, Yadi iti manyase. If you think, Suveda, so you have to supply Brahman. Suveda means I know well. So if you think you know Brahman well, then Tvam Vetha Nunam, indeed you know, Evam api the Brahma Rupam, only the finite form of Brahman. So Asya Brahmanaha the Brahma Rupam. The Brahma means finite or limited. So he's saying, if you think that you know Brahman well, O Shishya, then Nunam, indeed, you know only the finite form of Brahman. Yat Tvam, and you know Asya, this finite form of Brahman, Yad Deveshu, which is in the gods also, Athanu, therefore, Te, your Brahman, Eva Mimamsyam. Mimamsa is inquiry. You need to inquire into that Brahman of yours and has to be correctly ascertained. So Guru is saying that if you think, in brackets, I know Brahman well, then actually, O Shishya, you have understood only the finite form of this Brahman, which is there in all the human beings and which finds an expression in the gods also. And therefore, Shishya, you need to do an inquiry into that Brahman. This is the words of Shishya, of the Guru. And Shishya says, Manye Viditam. I think, O Guru, that Brahman is known by me. So he agrees with the Shishya, with the Guru, that, O Guru, you are right, I know Brahman. So now we have to look at the entire first chapter. What has been the flow of the first chapter? The Guru has revealed the Atma, number one. He has pointed out that Atma is neither a known object nor an unknown object, right? Which means what? We arrived at a discussion, we said that when something is neither known nor unknown, it is not knowable at all. And therefore it means it is not an object at all. Why? Because Atma is the very subject. The Atma is the knower, never the known. Always the Pramata, never the Prameyam. Always the experiencer, never the experience. And therefore, here you have to go one step further in your understanding. When is a Pramata a Pramata? When is a knower a knower? Is the knower status an incidental status or an intrinsic status?
Knower is the knower when there is something else to be known and it is incidental.
Yes, knower is a knower. Pramata status is incidental because pramata is a pramata only in the presence of the prameyam or in relation to the prameyam, right? Therefore, the pramata status of Atma, remember when I say status, pramata is status. Therefore, whose status? Of Atma. The pramata status of Atma is incidental in the presence of some prameyam only, but by itself, intrinsically, when the object is not available, there is only pure Chaitanyam. That pure Chaitanyam takes on the label of pramata in the presence of prameyam. But from the intrinsic point of view, Atma is not a pramata. It is not a subject at all. It is the Chaitanyam principle only. And this principle is Brahman. And therefore, if I say that Brahman is not something to be experienced, that is what Shruti says. Brahman is not something which you need to experience because it is always evident. But you simply have to own up. So first you say in the teaching progress, this is how it progressed. First I say I the Pramata am Brahman. Then I say I the Chaitanya Tattvam, the consciousness principle, I alone am Brahman. Because the Pramata status is available only when the Prameyam is there. So this mantra is basically Mananam mantra, right? The Acharya is asking the student if he has grasped the teaching. The Shravanam is over with chapter number 1. And this is the Mananam chapter. So he says, Yadi manyase suvedeti da brahmayavapi nunam tvam vetta brahmana rupam. So, Suveda iti manyase yadi. If you think that you know Brahman well, the Brahma eva tvam vetaha. You know very little. The Brahma means finite or little. So if you, Guru says, hey Shishya, if you think that you know Brahman well, then you have not understood my teaching at all. Because you know very little. Nunam, certainly know very little. What do you know very little of? Brahmana Rupam. The very little of the Swarupam of Brahman you know, you have seen only the lower Swarupam. So Yat Asya, which lower Swarupam? That Chaitanya Swarupam which obtains in the Vyashti, in the micro Upadi. That is what you know. But Tvamna Vetaha, you don't know what is the higher nature of that Swarupam in humans or in the gods. You have seen only the bodies. You don't know the consciousness principle which is present uniformly in human beings and in the gods. So you do not know that Brahman which is obtaining in the Vyashti Upadi as well as in the Samashti Upadi without any change. Uniformly being vested in both the Upadis, that Brahman you have not understood. And therefore, what should you do? Athanu Miyamamsyam. You have to inquire into that Brahman. You have to understood. And therefore, you need to inquire. Now, the question might come up, why does the Acharya have this doubt? Right? So, Shankara says there is a story, he doesn't say a story. In Chandogya Upanishad, it refers to Brahmaji himself is the teacher. And he has two students. One is Indradev and one is the Asura Raja. Right? So one is the king of the gods and one is the king of the Asuras. So when the teaching is over, the same teaching has been given to both. The teaching is over, the Asura Raja, the Asura king, he comes to the conclusion that body is Brahman. And then he goes and starts giving that teaching in his Asura Loka. And this is what is known as the Asuric Parampara, which we call Dehatmavada, or in today's language, we can say Charvaka Matam, materialism. That is what the Asura Raja concluded. And therefore, the student says, Manne Viditam, I know Brahman. No, Acharya, I really know Brahman. So here, when you say, I know, remember we are talking about Aparoksha Jnanam. And you would understand very carefully. Because there are two words, Paroksha and Aparoksha. And very often in the English translation of aparoksha, we see the words direct experience. Aparoksha jnanam means direct experience we see, and we translate paroksha jnanam as indirect knowledge. Such a translation has a problem because the direct experience words can have what all meanings? An experience in which Brahman is an object. Experience always implies experiencer and object of experience. So when you say direct experience, the student might think that, oh, Brahman is something which I can experience. And is such experience possible? No, because Shruti repeatedly declares Brahman is aprameyam, achintyam, agrahyam, etc. And therefore, no sense organ can ever perceive that Brahman. So that meaning has to be carefully skirted around. It is not that meaning at all. And there is a second possibility. Brahman being the subject of experience. But it must be carefully noted that you cannot say that Brahman is the subject of a particular experience, because that will take it into the first category, experiencing Brahman as an object. But if you say that Brahman is the subject of every single experience that I have, then what does it mean? I need not separately work for that experience. I did not do any sadhana to have experience of Brahman, because in every experience of mine, from waking up in the morning till going to sleep at night, in every single experience that I have, Brahman is continuously present. And that is the right way to understand. And therefore, the translation of aparoksha jnanam should never be as direct experience. Aparoksha jnanam is a matter of understanding, of cognition, not of experience. And the problem arises because we are trained, our intellect has been trained to process experiences, and all conclusions are based on such processing only. And therefore, if you come to the conclusion that Brahman is a subject of experience, any particular experience, that conclusion will be incorrect. What is the conclusion? That conclusion is, I am the experiencer, the pramata. Right? Because you are trained to process experiences. And when you process any experience, you say, I am the one who's experiencing. Therefore, I am the pramata. The problem, there is no problem in the experience at all per se, right? The problem lies in the incorrect conclusion, the false conclusion. Like we conclude, when we see the sun rising and setting, we, based on our experience, what is the conclusion? The sun rises and sets in the sky. This is a wrong conclusion coming out of the erroneous, incorrect processing of the experience of seeing the sun rise and set. And the wrong processing is what is due to the limitation of your pramanam, your eyes. What your eyes reveal to you is correctly recorded, but the processing of that, it is taken as sun setting and rising, which is incorrect. And what is the correct one? You use science, which says that sun neither sets nor rises. That apparent setting and rising is due to the rotation of the earth. That is the correct processing. And similarly, Vedanta says that when you have experiences in this world, don't process them through the medium of your sense organs, process them through the new pramanam. The new pramanam does not alter the experiences, but it helps us to alter the processing of the experience in the light of the pramanam. It helps you to arrive at a different conclusion. The very same set of experiences that I have, I will process as before, but not from the point of view of the sense organs, but from the point of view of Shastram. And if I do that, then I arrive at a completely different conclusion. I am not the pramata, I am the sakshi. And when I say I am the sakshi, I am excluding the body-mind complex. I am excluding the mind. Whenever I include the mind, remember the conclusion is I am the pramata. When I exclude the mind in my processing, the conclusion is I am sakshi. So this revised conclusion is the result not of any experiential process, but of a cognitive process. And similarly, paroksha. Paroksha is something away from me. Hence, the adjective aparoksha indicates that it is not about something away from me, it is about myself. And therefore, the translation of direct experience should be discarded. In fact, even the conclusion that I am a samsari is aparoksha jnanam only. But it is aparoksha moha, aparoksha delusion. Aparoksha means centered on myself. So I am a samsari is centered on myself, but it is not jnanam, it is delusion. So the mindset based on incorrect conclusion, the incorrect processing is what we call the triangular format. I am a jiva, there is a jagat, and there is a Ishvara who created jagat and created me, and I need that Ishvara to protect and to save me. That is the incorrect triangular format conclusion. What is the correct conclusion? Based on Shastra, the mindset based on Shastra gives you the binary format. I am a Sakshi. This entire world is dependent for its existence in me. I don't require anyone to save me or to protect me. This working for the transformation from the triangular mindset to the binary mindset, this is Nididhyasana. So moksha, remember, is not a sadhyam at all. It is not something to be achieved. It is siddham. It is already there. And one more important point, not there in the mantra, but from the bhashyam, Shankara introduces a Purva Pakshi. So that Purva Pakshi raises a question. When you say that consciousness is the Swarupam of Brahman, how do you reconcile with the statement of Vedanta that Brahman is without form? Right? Swarupam means what? Form. And the question is, if you are saying that consciousness is the form of Brahman, how do you reconcile with Shruti statements, several of them which say that Brahman is formless? So the question is whether consciousness is essential nature of Brahman or not. What is the answer? Is consciousness essential nature of Brahman? Because we have been saying that all this time. Shankara says no. Why? If you accept the statement that consciousness is the nature of Brahman, what are you doing? You are defining Brahman. And once you define Brahman, Brahman becomes a definable entity. And definable as what? As Chaitanyam Brahman. So what is the problem with Brahman becoming definable? If Brahman is definable as consciousness, why should Upanishad say that Brahman cannot be defined? Because it says, right? Na tatra chakshur gacchati, na vag gacchati, yatha vacho nivartante, from where words return without any effect. So there are many Shastric statements which say that Brahman cannot be defined. And therefore, if you say that Brahman can be defined as consciousness principle, are you not violating that particular statement of Veda? Right? So, what is the answer to that? We have already discussed actually. You should be able to pull out from earlier discussion. What should be the discussion? Consciousness can be said to be essential nature of Brahman, but only from the Vyavaharika perspective. From the Paramarthika perspective, there are no words to define Brahman. So consciousness can be said to be essential nature of Brahman from the Vyavaharika Drishti. From Paramarthika Drishti, this statement cannot be made. Okay, that is one. Secondly, another argument. Supposing you say that consciousness is the essential nature of Brahman and inertness, Jada is the essential nature of Bhuta Bhautika Prapancham, the inert universe. What is the problem? You have said that consciousness is the nature of Brahman and the nature of Anatma is inert. What have you done? You have to conclude that the Anatma is different from Brahman. Okay. Now the problem with Anatma being different from Brahman is what? There will become two things. One is Chaitanyam Brahma and one is Jada Prapancham. So two things are there in your view, which is what? There is Dvaitam. There is a species-wise difference. One is consciousness species, one is inert species. And if there are two species, two things, then Brahman can no longer be Ananta. Brahman can no longer be finite, because the fact that there is something else, Jada Prapancha in existence, the very Jada Prapancha's existence is the boundary for Brahman. Brahman will no longer be infinite. What is the answer? It's very simple. Guys, the answer should be obvious to you by now.
That Jagat, when we say that is Jada, we are saying in reality that is Nitya.
Yes. So when you say Chaitanyam is consciousness is the Swarupa of Brahman, it is from Vyavaharika Drishti. But from Paramarthika Drishti, Brahman is the substratum of consciousness as well as of the universe. So remember that both Chaitanyam and inertness, that is both consciousness and inertness, they are superimpositions. They are adhyasa on Brahman, because Brahman is vilakshanam. It is free from any sort of description. It is Chaitanya Jada Vilakshanam. It is neither consciousness nor is it inertness. Both are attributes which are superimposed upon Brahman. That is one more thing. Okay, in that case, a question can come up. Why should Upanishad define Brahman as Chaitanyam from the Vyavaharika point of view? For this question, Shankara gives the answer. He says, Paramarthika Brahman, which is the non-definable Brahman, where is it available? It's available only where there is a mind. Mind is available where? Only in Vyavaharika Prapancha. And supposing there is a creation where there are no minds, what is the status of Brahman? Be careful when you answer. If there is a creation where there are no minds, what is the status of Brahman? Is it there or not?
Yes, it's there in Paramarthika level, not in Vyavaharika. But it is there.
What is not there?
The mind is not there. That's what we have said.
The manifestation of Brahman will not be there in a place, in a creation where there are no minds. Because the fact that consciousness is Brahman, remember, it is a conditional definition of Brahman. What is the condition? Condition is that mind is present. And therefore, where mind is present, Brahman is available as consciousness. And Brahman, therefore, as consciousness, Brahman imitates the body, mind, sense complex. Consciousness seems to take on the attributes of the Anatma. Consciousness extends beyond the Anatma, of course, but the experience of that Brahman, of that consciousness, is limited to the size of my body. And so when body travels, consciousness seems to travel. When body has problems, consciousness, Brahman, seems to have problems. It is all apparent only. All this has to be understood very, very carefully. So with this, I'll stop for today. Any questions?
Acharya, in that last portion which you said, the creation where the mind is not there, it's basically the RC is not there. OC is always ever present.
Yes, OC is present, but the manifestation which is
That-
RC, that is not there.
That is not there.
So that has to be understood, that whenever you say Brahman is consciousness, remember you are assuming the presence of the mind, and therefore it is Vyavaharika only. Any definition of Brahman as consciousness, existence, Ananda, all these things assume that there is a manifestation, and therefore they are only in Vyavaharika. From Paramarthika angle, there are never any words at all. Because words require the mind. The mind is simply not there. It's a very beautiful analysis which you need to meditate on for some time. It can form your morning meditation for the next 1 week. These 2-3 verses which we did today. So with this I'll stop. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Acharya.
Om.
Thank you, Acharya.